Welcome back guys, and here we are today with my deck tech for the deck I'm running in the 4th Steam Showdown. For those of you who don't know, Steam Showdown is a tournament that's held, I think, every season now. It's 5 rounds of Swiss and then a cut to top 8 where it's a single elimination until you get to the final. And I have never, don't you worry about that top 8 part, because I have never made it that far yet. But so 5 rounds of Swiss where you play people with the same records, and then there's no sideboarding. There's just you have to submit a list and you have to stick to it through the entire tournament. And I decided to go for red-black aggro. Now, this is kind of a stressful list, and I don't think it's optimized because I was going to run with my Is It Burn list until, apologies for the siren, I was going to run with my Is It Burn list until about a day before the tournament, and then it just went on a massive losing streak and I lost all confidence in it. Like, I still think it's a good deck, but it was just not doing too well for me. But yeah, so then I quickly threw together a deck. I liked vampires, I went, let's see what I got on the expansion, and here we are. So it's generally the same thing as what vampires did before, where the ideal turn is either one of your powerful madness outlets and one of these 3 creatures here, and then you curve it into a really powerful turn 3 play such as Bloodhole Priest, Incorrigible Youths or something. You can even start going stuff like Arms of the Veins plus another vampire, etc, etc. There's a lot of little lines, but this deck is very, very, very fast, and it's meant to get there pretty. It's meant to kill your opponent like as soon as possible. But one of the things I thought the expansion gave this deck is it gives this deck is a bit of a longevity. I believe is this phrase. Like, we can. Before, with vampires, if it got past turn 6 and you hadn't killed your opponent, you were very likely dead. But now there's a chance, and I went for that to capitalize, and this is where I've ended up. I'm reasonably happy. I think it's not polished, but I'm reasonably happy with the general idea. So let's start on the cards. First card in the deck is Asylum Visitor. This is another one of our long game cards. It's a 3/1. It's a madness. It just does kind of what this deck likes. You can madness it out for cheaper. It's a 3/1 for 2, which is pretty aggressive. It's not the worst thing if you have to play this thing out on turn 2, although obviously there's much better players. And its ability is surprisingly relevant. You can get your hand empty very fast with this deck, and if you're drawing an extra card a turn, you can go really nuts. And bonus for your opponents trying to do the same thing, you can also draw a card of them as well. But I like this guy. He gives you pretty good power, and I've never been unhappy to have him in my hand, because at worst you discard him. And yeah, Stormcloak Condemned. This is kind of not. I mean, it's not really a controversial card, but a lot of people don't end up running this guy in their vampires list just because it's double black, which is quite mana demanding. But I've never really struggled with this deck too. I mean, obviously there's been moments where I've had like black mana, red mana, and can't cast this guy, but they're pretty rare. And most of the time, I think this guy's payoff is worth running him over something like another Herald Falconwrath or black to common. I think the payoff of running this guy is worth running over something like Olivia's Dragoon, which is a far less impressive ability, but it does the same thing. But I mean, if you're less confident about the mana, then you can run this guy. Go ahead. But I think the power of being able to bump your team, because this is essentially your entire creature suite. I mean, yeah, you've got stuff like Smuggler's Copter, but for those of you fools who think Scrappy Scoundrel isn't a vampire, meet Olivia. No, obviously that's a joke, but there's obviously a few creatures. I think there's 4 creatures in the deck that aren't vampires. Yeah, 4 creatures that aren't vampires. So it's not everyone that gets the team buff, but it is most of your creatures, and I think he's a very powerful creature. Like, he's essentially a 3/3, which means they can't like Fiery Impulse or Galvanic Bombardment him, because you can just discard them from your hand and black the spell. And once you got a whiteboard, it's pretty nice. He's a free madness outlet. That's all I'm really asking for. Speaking of free madness outlets, I run 2 Herald Falconwraths. It may seem weird that I'm running 2 instead of 3. It's because I couldn't decide whether I wanted to be. Basically, it was between the 3rd Herald Falconwrath and the 2nd Key to the City, and it was very close. And in the end, I decided on Key to the City because everyone in Steam Showdown loves control. So I thought, hey, this thing gives you a bit more longevity in the late game. Why not go with this? But that does not mean Herald Falconwrath is a bad card. This is essentially a 3/2 on turn 2, which gives you 1 free madness outlet. which is always nice. The flying is pretty relevant as well in the creature matchups. Being able to go over the top is pretty nice. She's just an all-round good card. She was as good as she was in last season. She was pretty good then. Still, I call the heart of the deck is Fury Blade Vampire. This thing is it's easy to cast and it's insanely powerful. If you do like the dream start of Fury Blade Vampire into Incorrigibly Youths, that's 8 damage coming at them on turn 3, and half of it's trample, which is pretty tough thing to deal with. It's a free madness outlet, although it's a bit awkward sometimes having to do stuff from like the beginning of combat. But overall, it's not really too much of a hindrance in this deck, and yeah, this is a great card. I would never swap it out for any of the other madness outlets. I really do think this guy's good. And we get on to our first new card of the expansion, the Scrappy Scrounger. Funnily enough, I actually nearly forgot about this guy. I was like about to submit my list, and I was like, so I watched like a covert stream or something like that, and then so his opponent played this, and I was like, oh shit, this would be a really good card in my deck. But again, it essentially ticks all the boxes. It's aggressive, 3/2 for 2. You've got ability which you can activate, and its ability works well with madness. If you have to discard this thing, you can discard it and then bring it back end to turn. And it's an artifact which works well with some of our artifact synergies. And yeah, not really much to say. Not really something I'm going to play turn 2, but a bit like a Silent Visitor. It's not the end of the world if you have to play this thing on turn 2. It's not a bad card. Second, onto our second artifact suite, we have Smuggler's Copter. No explanation needed. I could spend about the next 10 minutes going about how amazing this card is in this deck, but I'll highlight the one downside, which is you can't madness in one of your Incorrigibly Youths. Where are you? You can't madness in Incorrigibly Youths off a Smuggler's Copter just because you've already attacked essentially. So that's the only downside in this deck to that card, and I'm making it sound like it's bad, but trust me, this thing is insane. It's Smuggler's Copter. I'm sure you've all heard about it by now. And finally, Key to the City is our last artifact suite, so that gives us 6 artifacts in total in the deck. This thing, unblockability is nice in creature mirrors. Just giving one of your bigger creatures unblockable is essentially like a firecraft each turn, which they can't really deal with. And you know, if you're running low on fuel, you can activate the ability Key to the Cities. It's expensive for what it does. It's essentially 2 mana draw card, and there's always an hour when you draw into something like the top card of your deck you can't cast when you could have cast if you just chose not to pay. But overall, the longevity I think is pretty good off this guy, and yeah, not much to say. It's a good artifact. It's impressive. It's unassuming. Like, I'm never happy when I've got this in my hand or whenever I've got it on the field, but it always ends up doing something for me. I'll be like, okay, my opponent's on 4 life, but they've got a really big field hammer and get through, and then I'll be like, oh wait, hang on, I can just give a Bullet Hole Priest some blockability and stuff like that. Or I'll be like, okay, I don't have any madness outlets, I've already used like a Strongcurve Condemned, and now I'm like, okay, I'll just discard. Like, I'll use the key discard to the things I'm hellbent or something like that. But Key to City has always done me well. I'm relatively happy out in my deck. It's not good, obviously, in aggressive matchups, but I don't know. It's good in the long game matchups, which is where this deck normally struggles. Olivia, not really much to say. We're a vampire deck. We are running Olivia, and as I did point out before, she makes a creature a vampire, so that works well with Scrappy Scrounger. And apart from that, she's insane. They need to kill this before you get another turn, otherwise you probably won the game, or are going to be in a very good position at winning the game. And then we go into our massive burn suite now. We have 4 Fire Tempers. Not much to say. Again, this is a lightning bolt in this deck. It really is. It's not even an exaggeration. We have so many madness outlets, and so I mean, let's just count our burn here. We have 12 points of Fiery Temper. If you count in License Disintegration, which we'll get onto in a second, that's 15, 18, 21. Another 12 points is 33, 37, 41, 41, 44, 47 points of burn in this deck, and that's not including Incorrigibly Youth. I mean, Blood Hole Priest. So yeah, we run a bit of burn in this deck, so if we can get our opponents to like 10 life, they are in danger, always in danger. They need to close us out fast or find some life gain. But getting back into our burn suite. Fiery Temper, like I said, it's very versatile because it can go for creatures as well, which is kind of nice in like in the aggro matchups. And but most of the time you're happy enough to be launching this at their head, and it's a good card. Like, again, it's essentially it was good last season, it's good this season in the vampire deck. This is kind of an interesting one. License Disintegration, it might be a bit controversial because, as I said, I only run 6 artifacts in the deck, and That might not be enough, obviously. There'll be times where you have an unlicensed disintegration and no artifact on the field and you'll feel sad. But you know what, in them situations, it's a murder. And murder is not a bad card, especially, it's bad against control, fair enough, but it's not a bad card in general. And I've been relatively impressed with this thing, and by relatively I mean a lot. Hence I run all three. It was kind of, I didn't justify it myself putting in the deck, and I tried out one or two, and then they were just doing so much work. It's so nice being able to, they'll leave a blocker back, think they're safe, and then you can just kill it, deal damage to them, and then punch through. It's just really powerful, and it's unconditional removal. That's always nice in a deck. Like if they flip a thing at the ice, and thing in the ice, for example, before that was game over against vampires, now it's a free lunch basically. I've been impressed with this thing. I don't know. 6 artifacts, it's not like an absolutely insane one, but like, they're not going to spend removal on Key to the City. It's hard for them to spend removal on Smuggler's Copter. Scrappy Scoundrel always comes back, so it's not as low as it seems, but I will stand to say there will be probably a moment in this tournament where my opponent's on 3 life and I have 2 unlicensed disintegration stands and I can't kill them. But I do think it's worth the waste. Like again, in creature matchups, it's fantastic. Getting on to the other essential lightning bolt in this deck, this thing is Lightning Helix for 1 black, which is, some would argue that was a bit of an overstatement, but yeah, this card's, you need stuff to madness, you need burn, and this fits all the bills. I think Hakeem was never really a fan of this in his vampire deck, but I've never not wanted it, basically. The life gain is surprisingly relevant, like creature mirrors, and even not, it's most of the time it's 1 mana burn for 3, which is good, and the times where it's 3 mana burn for 3 is still not terrible. Essentially, I just like it. I like running as much burn as possible. Like I said, I think for me in vampires, the way I like to win, the way I win most of my games with vampires, I'll get off 1 big hit with a Fury Blade, and like I don't know, something else, some other creature I'll get in. So I'll essentially get 2 creature attacks in the game, and then I'll just go Firecraft, Collected Defiance, Arms of the Vein, Fiery Temper, and just kill them before they can even get close into the game. But yeah, Arms of the Vein fits that bill. I like it. It's a madness card. It's good. Exclusive Firecraft is burn, uncounterable burn, and it's a damn good card. 4 damage, creature play. Always nice. If maybe you need to emergency take a Planeswalker off ultimate, you can do that. Obviously that's not an ideal situation, but it's an option. But most of the time this is 4 damage to the dome, and that's all you can really ask for 3 mana burn. Collector Defiance is fantastic in this deck. There's so many situations where you can get value from all 3 modes. You can discard your hand and like discard out Fiery Temper or Arms of the Vein or something, or you can Collector Defiance and, you know, like kill a creature, burn them in the face, etc, etc. This is a very versatile card in this deck, and I am a big fan. And like it's one of the few decks I've got where that first ability, target player discards other cards, is actually relevant, and it's damn good, I think. Bloodhole Priest is one of our bigger creatures. In fact, I think it is our biggest creature in the deck. It is a 4/4 for 3 mana, and its ability, like again, this guy's just a home run hitter, or gal, I guess. But she's pretty strong. She shocks on attack all the way into the battlefield, which is always nice. And when you're hellbent, obviously, she's decent when you're not hellbent, and she's insane when you are hellbent. And I like it. I'm always happy to have her in my hand, and I will. She's big. She dodges a lot of removal. There's not really too much to say about her. She doesn't have haste, which is kind of sad, but hey, who knows? Like the power of going like turn 3 Olivia into turn 4 Bloodhole Priest is just insane. And that's all we got to say. She's a rare, so obviously she doesn't show up every game, but she's a damn good card. And like I said, she was great last season in Vampires. She's still good in this season. We'll get into Midnight Oil last because that got a bit spicy. But Incorrigible Youth again. TMP last season was only running 2 of these in his vampire deck. He was the guy who beat me in the first round, and I just felt that was a massive mistake throughout the entire tourney. I want 4 of this guy. Hell, I'd probably take like 6 or 8. You always want him in your opening hand because you want to madness him out turn 3 and get in an insane attack. He's one of the bread and butter of the deck. 4/3 for haste for 3 mana essentially is just great value. Not much to say. I would happily take this guy. And yeah, so, and you know, 5 mana isn't even too expensive for him. Like, they sweep your board or whatever. You'll eventually hit 5 mana and you'll be able to crack back at them, which is always nice. Midnight Owl. I've taken a fair bit of shit for this card off certain people, ironically including the person I'm playing in the first round. But I can see why. This card is weird. It's essentially you draw an extra card and you lose your hand size basically, which I've been impressed with this guy. Like I said, not every game you win on turn 4, and this thing lets it comes down and they can't remove it. You're drawing an extra card a turn every turn for the rest of the game, and that's just giving you more chances to draw your burn to finish them off. That's really it. Ironically with this card is that it doesn't really work well with Madness in the fact that whenever you discard a card you lose a life. I was actually in a situation where I was on 1 life, had a Fiery Temper in hand, and I couldn't use it because it would have killed me. But I did win that game because I had lethal on board, but I thought it was funny at the time. But yeah, I like this thing because it gives you hope in the late game, and if they can't remove it, if they're spending their Anguish Unmakings on your creatures, if they're, you know, Reclamation Sages are just being played as creatures, because in this matchup you can't save a Reclamation Sage for Midnight Owl if you're like a mid-range deck or whatever, just because you'll be dead before you can cast it if it's just sitting in your hand. You need to place it. You need to play the Reclamation Sage to try and kill like a Fury Blade Vampire or whatever. But Midnight Owl is fantastic. It really is. I've tested out one, I was very impressed, and then the other one made its way into the deck, and I found room for it because I thought it was that good. Like before, when I run like Cletus doesn't help you in the late game. It's a 3/4 essentially. But this thing gives you hope, and hope is always a nice thing to have. And on that bombshell, that's really the deck. The land base is as straightforward as it comes. I don't run any of the fancy lands just because, like none of the brown lands, i.e. the colorless lands, I run just because. I mean, obviously I would never run this, but like as an example, just because you need double black turn 2, you need red, you're quite mana reliant, so it's not worth to screw over your mana. And stuff like where is it? Don't run the. I guess I could run some dual lands in hindsight because I don't have play on turn 2 until turn 2. But nah, I don't like dual lands in aggro decks. I never have. I don't like lands that come into play tapped, basically. Again, don't really like lands that come into play tapped. And then you get onto like Aether Hub, which I don't know where it is because apparently it's disappeared off the face of the earth. But Aether Hub as well. Don't really run Aether Hub just because. Oh yeah, it's because I've got it on commons, don't I? But yeah, like Aether Hub, Westphal Abbey, and all these cards don't really run just because Aether Hub is only good for 1 charge, which isn't great when you've got like some strong Condemned and stuff. It doesn't count as a black mana essentially there. And like yeah, so I mean, I just kept them out of it simple. We have what 14 sources of black, which is pretty good, and then 13 red. So mana's never really disappointing me. Obviously, there's games where you only draw 2 lands or whatever, but overall, I don't think it's worth running like 26 lands and a bunch of dual lands and stuff to try and slow your deck down just to get consistent mana. I think it's worth going all in, so that's kind of where I am at with the list. So, boom, this is my tournament list. The last 2 tournaments we went 2 and 3. Hopefully we can replicate that. In our first round we are playing We Coexist, which is a friend of mine. I'm sure some of you will know. He is on green-red Electrostatic Pummeler, which would be an awesome matchup. I don't even mind if I lose because that deck's sweet. But it's essentially green-red aggro. I'm looking forward to seeing how the deck plays out. And we are playing Friday, I think. Yeah, we're playing Friday. So it'll be a couple of days from now, and you can look forward to that. Enjoy my thumbnails, which I love making for these tournaments. Is my favourite part. And hopefully we can break the curse of losing our first match in every tournament we join. But yeah, that is the deck. Thank you guys for watching, I guess, and I'll see you on Friday.